Welcome to the Life's Best Medicine podcast, where we are finding hope and healing one episode at a time. No appointment needed, no rubber gloves, and no coping. Just a healthy dose of life lessons to help equip you for this wild journey we call life. Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. Thanks for joining us again. It's that time of year where we pay for our past sins, where we start exercising and watching our diet, trying to get our tight clothes looser on us and all those kind of things. So you may have given in to Aunt Betty's famous pie. You may have had some cookies, things like that you shouldn't have had. I shouldn't even say the words right now, but now you can have something delicious that won't make you feel terrible. Simply snacking. Beef and chicken, great snacks, high protein, low carb. This is what we're preaching around here. So everyone, grab yourself some Simply Snacking, have it with you when you're traveling, have it in your purse, have it in your glove compartment. They'll help you stay on track. So thank you for sponsoring us today. And everyone, I hope you enjoy this episode. Hello and welcome back to the Life's Best Medicine podcast. Yes, we have Officer Eric Reynolds back again to talk about, to tell more about his story, because there's so much. I mean, this is part two, because we couldn't get it all into like a little over an hour last time. So, hey, welcome back, man. It's good to have you. I know you got a lot more to the story. We left off talking about what you're doing now with cops and campers and what your experience has been like traveling around the U.S. and meeting new people and helping out and all that. So tell people what happened when you raised your American flag with a thin blue line on it when you were out camping.
We were at a campground, Roundout Valley in, I think it's Accord, New York. And, we're members of I won't say the name, but it's a big camping network. And, you're allowed to stay there a couple of weeks and then you got to move on to a new campground. It's just part of we all know that's what you do. And this particular campground, even though I've been at a whole bunch of other ones, we travel in a truck, and a toy hauler in a truck. We take it all over the country, like you had said. So I usually, at the end of setting up, I'll put my flag up, the thin blue line flag, and I also have the American flag with the thin blue line in it. And this particular campground sent somebody over and said, "Hey, you got to take down your flag." And I'm like, "My American flag?" Like, your thin blue line flag. So I thought he was messing around, because sometimes guys bust your balls and, "I'm just kidding, I'm a cop too," or something like that. That's what I was really expecting. And no, he's like, "You got to take it down." What? So I was perplexed, because I'm like, well, the campground technically owns the property, but so I didn't know what to really do. So I decided to film it and have him tell me again. So I recorded on my cell phone and I go, "What do you ask me to do?" And he goes over and we kind of have a little banter, go back and forth. And then I don't know if you saw the video. I sent it to you and you can watch it later on, but did you?
No, I haven't had a chance yet, man. We decided to record both in a row, and I thought we'd have a day to do that.
It's but like a 30-second. I filmed him telling me, and there's profanity at the end of it, because that's where my PTSD kicked in. I was offended that a guy would tell me to take down a flag, that what it means to me and other law enforcement officers. So I lost it and ended up dealing with the manager. I recorded that interaction, her telling us to leave the property. And I'm like, "It's the American flag. You got Canadian flags here. I mean, nothing against the Canadians, but come on." So you had military flags up. The only flag that they didn't want up was the thin blue line flag. All right. So I eventually put it in my truck, because we just drove 6 hours, and I got small kids. I wasn't going to make a big scene of it. Did
they give you a reason for that? Did they say it was offensive to people, or what was their reasoning that all these other flags can fly except the American flag with a blue line on it?
They say corporate policy said so, right? Well, I looked up TT's, corporate policy, and it has decorative flags, military flags, veteran flags, all these different flags you're allowed to fly, right? It doesn't say police flag. It doesn't say sheriff flag. It doesn't say corrections flag. It just says all these flags. So I always thought veterans, we're veterans of, we're military for homeland here, right? I never thought of it, but reading through it, it seems like they were just, I don't know, targeting that flag. And then eventually I decided to stay. I go, all right, we're going to stay all 8 days and be an irritant. So every day I had the theme police day of the, and I would put all over like a police blanket would be my tablecloth, all my t-shirts, like my buddy Joe, his stuff was out. I had my Keto 5-0 mugs, and every day it was just an irritant. And I was a fork in the road. So everyone was driving by, and I started meeting people, and I started meeting officers, retired officers. They were asked to take down their flags, right? And it just started burning, I started building up again. And I eventually reached out to a couple of buddies at Law Enforcement Today. They did an article on it that went pretty viral. And then Channel 12 News came out and did a story on it about a retired police officer being asked to take down this flag. So she snuck in Blaze Gomez, and she was like, there's flags there, flags there. It was really awesome, the story. And that story actually got blocked on TikTok because it goes against their community standards. I'm like, it's a story about a flag. Jeez, that's a whole nother issue. So, I started getting a lot of positive feedback from cops. Leave that campground, come to this campground, come to this campground. And I started thinking, I had a buddy of mine that had this idea years ago after the Cops and Cabins event. He goes, we should do this in trailer parks. And he had this Cops and Campers idea, my buddy Frank. And he had a logo. I go, we're going to start our own little group of cops and campers, right? And in the meantime, I got suspended from this camping group for being belligerent to their staff. So now 2 months, I can't book a campground. So all of a sudden, I started getting, through different social media contacts, hey, there's a guy in Ithaca, New York at Spruce Row wants to give you a free week. He says you can fly any flag you want. I'm like, oh, awesome. And then I got another invite, and then another invite, and then another invite. We got like 5 different campsites in upstate New York that said, come on over, it's on us. From Ogdensburg to Cape Vincent to Lake Chautauqua. It took me a long time to say that one. So it was awesome, man. And they bring local cops out. They'd show up like 5 troopers, and they'd give me challenge coins. I was talking about that stuff, and it was just it was awesome. We're like little celebrities. Let's drive the golf cart around, and my kids are like, this is awesome, Dad, But it turned into a very positive thing that was such a negative moment at that time, and I just got to educate people. Where does that line come from? What does it mean? It's the difference between chaos and anarchy. You got to have chaos and order. You got to have someone that's in the middle to keep, and sometimes that line moves a little bit depending on laws and what people's, vote for. And it goes back, I don't know if but like in the 1700s, there's something called a thin red line. And it was where the British used, they used some redhead Scots to help fight the Russians on an invasion, and they were outmanned. But the red line never broke. It's like something from Game of Thrones, right? So
you get the crazy Scots and the Irish together, man, they're going to throw down a couple of beers and get their weapon ready to go, man. Let's do this thing, right?
So somehow, I don't know if it, bled into knighthood and stuff like that. And obviously it bleeds into, fire and police. You see the red line for firemen, you see the gray line for corrections. And that's what's always meant. I've seen the thin blue line at funerals, and I know it got incorporated into the flag, and there's a whole argument whether you should mess with the American flag because there's like case law that you're not supposed to, but that's all old stuff. People have been making the flag different colors, whether you're a Florida State fan or Texas, they've just been doing it. So I had it. I'm just trying to be a nice guy. Let people know, hey, I'm a cop. Come talk to me so I can talk health, right? I just got my license, about 6 months before. I was like ready to go and meet people. And now this guy is going to come over and tell me to take the flag down. So I lost it. And you can, in the video, you can see my PTSD.
So what happened? Yeah. And that's an important point, but what happened like over the next couple of days? Did they not say anything again? Did they go, I'm not messing with this guy? Or did they pressure you? Or what happened over the next few days?
They realized I picked the wrong guy. Well, then what happened? We leave after 8 days and we go to Niagara and we start our journey of all 5 Great Lakes this summer. What you talk about homeschooling? How about swimming in the Great Lake?
Yeah, awesome, man.
Feeling it, right? And when I come back one day, I want to be my kids. I mean, that's how good they got it right now. So,
that's a plug for homeschooling. My wife's a middle school principal, and the kids on Friday and Monday have homeschooling, so they could be wherever. It's kind of a hybrid type program, and they're in school with their classmates on the other days. But man, the kids can go adventure and they can go to the Grand Canyon, they can go do stuff and they can learn remotely. And that is such a cool thing, but not doing remote all the time. But, with homeschooling, when it's you guys investing in them and teaching them and showing them real stuff, like when you see the Liberty Bell, when you see certain things, you say, wow, that impacts you. Right. And so that's really cool. Like I love homeschooling from that reason. And people don't realize there's a lot of social interactions and all these things because people think, oh, homeschool kids are not going to have any social skills because they're locked in a little room all day, but that's not the way it works for most people I know.
Right. And it was awesome. And then when we were getting ready, we went to Niagara Falls, and then somebody tipped me off and said, they're having a rally for you, Eric. I'm like, a rally? What do you mean? Well, I guess some pro cop group, I don't want to say their name, but they got together a rally in my honor. And I ended up driving back 6 hours to be a part of this rally. And we drove in a parade of thin blue line flags all through these towns that don't support the cops. And we were headed to the campground, and the New York State Police stopped us, like the Gestapo. And they were nice, but it was crazy. They didn't want us to cause a scene. We were just going to have a fun time, and we were going to like invade the place,
And people don't realize that. Like a lot of people, I've seen it where they want to have a fun time and enjoy each other's company and be around like-minded people, right? Not that they want to go tip over cars and cause violence. There's a lot of people who, they've sacrificed a lot. Like guys like you who sacrificed, you should be able to do certain things as long as you're not causing a trouble and, like making a huge scene or causing conflict. And that brings up another point. And gosh, I always say I don't want to be political, but I just can't help it sometimes. Because when I see stuff, and I don't even think it's political. I think it's common sense. When people say defund the police, let's get the police are the problem. And you think, really? Have you seen what happens when you pull the police out of areas? Do you think you pull the National Guard out of somewhere that's going to be safer for you as a citizen? What's your take on that?
I mean, my take is probably another podcast we could have about how diet's affecting like people in general, domestic violence and behaviors in people. We have a lot more mental illness than people realize out there. People that don't know how to cope with a lot of things. And that's why we get put in some bad situations. And sometimes we're not always at our best, we fail at some of those times too,
And is it true that domestic disputes are the scariest calls, the highest mortality for police?
It's one of the most violent because emotions are so strong. So you take somebody that maybe has PTSD in their private life. I mean, a lot of civilians have it. It could be from a car accident. It could be a loss of a family member or, anything.
Gang violence, all those things that they're seeing all the time.
I mean, how many people out there can say that they've seen a dead body or been involved in something that violent? That really affects you. And I think that's a whole nother issue with what's going on in this country. With most of the stuff I had to do as a police officer in the end was social work. I had to investigate, was uncles touching the cousins, or was this guy doing this? Or is this kid malnourished, being starved to death? And it was just over and over again. And you're like, man,
you see the worst of humanity, and then you start getting jaded. Like you were saying, that's why you said, like 10 years is the optimal. After that, it just gets too much. And that last time you just think everyone's a jerk, basically, right? You think everyone's a criminal because you just been so jaded. And, and it's the same thing in medicine. The hospitalists, the people in the hospital see a different picture of illness than the people on the outpatient, because we see most people getting better. They're seeing the sickest of the sick come in. So they're thinking, oh my gosh, everyone's dying. Well, there's a vast majority who aren't dying. But anyways, I think it's really important that it's a perspective thing for a lot of us. For instance, like one other thing I want to throw in there, I remember watching a video when we were at war with Iraq and fighting in Afghanistan. And you see these bombs going off and all this chaos happening. And the kids are sitting there playing like nothing's happening. They just tune it out. Could you imagine if that happened in our inner city? What would happen? Like if you heard bombs going off around you, like you'd be hiding and run. They're sitting there like nothing. And you realize, oh my gosh, how are you going to fight against people who have no fear?
Right. Yeah. It's ironic that campground, by them blocking the cops and us not being able to have a rally there, they actually had a peeping Tom that night that got caught filming underneath some shower stalls. And that went kind of viral, and they're like, well, too bad. If you had more cops in the campground, maybe that wouldn't have happened, right?
Well, you think about that. That's why a lot of places would, I don't know if they still do, but they would give free food or coffee to the police because they want them around. Like that's your protection, right? I mean, it's just common sense. Like, hey, I'll give you a free drink if I don't get robbed every night, and I'm going to go home safely. I'll give you whatever you want, man.
Right. So, yeah. And then it just, at that rally, I got up in the back of a pickup truck and was talking. It was only like 40, 50 people. But to me, I'd never had anything like this, and I gave a little speech about thank you for coming out. And I go, we're going to make something good of it. And we're going to go to like pro cop campgrounds. And then, it started the whole cops and campers idea going, and I'm like, we're going to do this, and I reached out, obviously, after the people reached out to me. I mean, those are some of the campgrounds I always highlight and tell people, hey, check these places out.
And I think also saying, hey, look, here's where not to go if you care about the police. I think there has to be a financial, and then people may change their tune when they realize, we lost 40% of our campers because they don't want to deal with us not allowing people to have freedoms.
Well, it went really viral. A lot of cops were contacting this camping club and saying, we want to cancel our membership, blah, blah, blah. And all this started happening. And that's when I got suspended. They didn't suspend me the first week. They waited for the week of, torture, and then they suspended me, trying to spank us, right? So,
but then that gets the message even worse. And then people go, you suspended this guy who's a friend? Okay, done, right? We're going somewhere else. Go where you're wanted. That's how I always thought about it. If you don't like me for whatever, then I'll go spend my money. I don't have to spend my money on people who don't like me.
I know.
Right?
It was new to me. I mean, I didn't think it was an issue, and that's why in the video I'm a little bit, I lost my cool there a little bit, and I didn't use any violence or anything. I just, going back to my PTSD, that was the last time I had something that that triggering. It was a long time. Since I retired, finding a brother and stuff like that, everything was just going right.
Because you're there, because you're there and you're just chilling. It was funny because when you're saying, I was thinking like, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Rambo, but he's just walking through the town and this sheriff decides to just antagonize him. Then look what a disaster turns into. It's like, you just let this guy do his thing. He's not causing the trouble. Just chill out, right? That's a message for the police too. Sometimes just let people do their thing. Like, if they, talk to them and be kind and decent and not get in their face. And so it's this whole communication thing and how we present ourselves too, and you're a guy, I get it, you're there camping, like, hey, I'm gonna have a good day, or relaxing, you get your little campfire going, doing your stuff, and then all of a sudden someone's like, hey, take that down, it's offensive, and you're like, wait a minute, what? Like, shocking. And I could see why you react that way. You go, seriously? Like, that's what you're worried about? I'm not like blaring loud music and getting drunk and causing a commotion. I'm here with my family just chilling out.
Yeah. And I wasn't even drinking. So it wasn't like those emotions in that video. That was PTSD coming out. And I'm glad I wasn't drinking, because that's why I've had to slow my drinking down. I mean, I still enjoy a few beverages here or there, but I can't get to that point, because if I do happen to get into the red because of some other situation I can't control, I'm scared of how I'm going to react. And now, that's one reason I got out of police work, because I didn't want to have that situation when I'm, in a position of power and to arrest people and maybe violate their civil rights or something. So I'm like, I cannot lose my cool. So that's one of the reasons I got out of it. So yeah, that was the first time in a long time I had something get me that worked up, And
so now out of that, you get to travel around and people say, come stay at my place for free and hang out and all that. That's just awesome.
Yeah. And, these are awesome people, man. There's, I don't know if anybody's ever been camping, but you got to try it. They will deliver an RV or camper for you at a campground. You don't have to drive it. Just pull up like a hotel, check in, check out.
Yeah, I've seen that. I have friends who, he goes, Brian, do you know how much the gas would cost to drive from here to, Northern California and all this? So he goes, cheaper for me. Just, they set it up. I don't have to back it. I don't have to worry about, and you're all good to go. I mean, that's pretty cool. And just to be out there in nature. And that's one other thing we could touch about, that the impact of nature, just hearing a river going by, or smelling the pines, and the other thing, and I wanted to raise this when we were at the conference, but someone was talking about sleep, and we were talking about the effects of lights and computers and all that stuff, and like when you're out camping, it's like, man, dude, what time is it? We got to go to bed. It's like 6:15. What? 6:15? Because it gets dark and you're out there and you're like, okay, let's, or you could get the campfire going. You can stay up till 2 a.m. also, just sitting by the campfire talking about life and having a good time.
That's what it's about, man, So,
but sometimes just one night out, just one night overnight in the wilderness, and you're like, it's recharging for you.
It's awesome. Sometimes I'll get up on top of our camper. I have a little platform area where actually we saw rockets take off from Cape Canaveral last year. And I'll go up there and do my yoga stretches. I'll just lay down and I'll just stare off into the trees and, it's all this earthing stuff that I really didn't pay much attention to, until I started living this life and changing my ways. And it's awesome walking around barefoot in the grass and, just stuff that I hadn't done in so long. I think it was the last time I was doing it was when I was a kid. You get into the system from school, high school, and next thing you know, you're off at college and you try to build a career, and next relationships come along, different career choices. And I can't tell you the last time I just walked through a forest, just looking and absorbing things and not having to be in a hurry to get back. That was another.
Yeah, because that's the drags on. Oh, we got to go back on Monday. We got to go back to work, and so being able to have that where you can just be chilling, like that's one of the good things about retirement. And then being motivated and saying, hey, I'm going to go to this next place. I'll meet people. I've never been camping and haven't met great people from all over the country, and that's kind of one of those things that people who don't camp don't understand that part of it. Where people just want to have a good time and relax. And I've had people say, hey, come over for dinner night. We have extra meat or whatever. Just super cool people that just want to enjoy life.
Yeah, and my boys are pretty being homeschooled. They look you in the eye when they talk to you. They're personable kids. I sometimes sit back and I'm like, wow, yeah, we're doing a good job. We got to stay the course. There's still teenage years to go through, and they're old.
Your kids, I can attest, man. Your kids looked me in the eye, shook my hand, and smiled and connected. Right? I mean, a lot of kids don't even engage at all. Because they're afraid of everyone that they're trying to, spread disease to them or something like that. So we're in a weird time for sure, because kids have to be kids. Like your kids running out in the dirt and playing and throwing rocks at whatever the heck they're doing and being knuckleheads, those kind of things. But those are things you're going to remember when they grow up. And they say, remember, we went that time we were out in the middle of nowhere, or something goes wrong. And you remember, hey, remember that time we got a flat tire in the middle of nowhere, whatever, those are life experiences, and you can teach them how to change a tire. Like you were saying, like kids don't know how to do things that we knew, like, how to fix a carburetor or whatever, like on a motorcycle, those kind of things that you get these skills along the way that it's just the way you do things.
Yeah, it's been, man, my wife indoctrinated me with like tiny house shows and, let's take a storage container and stack them up and build it. I was like, this lady's crazy. She think I'm going to live in a trailer, right? Truck and trailer. And here I am 2 years later, living the dream.
Hey, your truck's about the size of my house, man.
Yeah. Well, that was
pretty beastie.
Because I didn't know how much bigger we're going to get. So I wanted to make sure we had at least not a lot of storage, but there's a lot of storage in the truck. So that was one of the other reasons. But yeah, and we go to campgrounds and people see the flag and they start walking and we start talking. And you know what I realized? A lot of retired people camp a lot. And a lot of retired people camp full time. So you see a lot of the same people. And they're all metabolically sick. I have to say most of them. They're almost all on medications. They're almost all, a lot of the guys, especially, I see the veterans and I see, cops and they're limping around, I just see it, and I try to, and that's when I start, talking to them. Hey, man, what meds are you on? I'm not going to take them off or anything, but I'm just trying to look at, all right, can this guy be fixed, or is he unfortunately just going down that path that.
Well, yeah. And, I'm telling you, we had Ken on my podcast and we talked about, he goes, no one's beyond help. No one's beyond hope. Like really, it's some of those things, but it's that person who says, hey, I really want to be healthier. I really do. If they don't want to be healthier, you could do it. You could talk to them for 12 hours. You can't help them. So it's really figuring out like, okay, maybe someone's receptive or not. So I get a pretty good sense of like, if you don't want to hear it, I'm not going to try to convert you to my religion if you're happy with your religion. But if you're not, you may want to listen, right? We may want to talk about that. When I'm saying religion, I'm talking about nutrition, exercise, activity, those kind of things, or even religion if it comes to that.
Yeah.
But when you see someone hurting and you have a tool that could help them, you're like, crud, I have an obligation to say something that maybe I can help them. And some people will be receptive, and I've seen that. I've seen crazy stuff happen. And it's cool just by saying, hey, and usually it's not me because I don't like to just talk to strangers necessarily, but a friend of mine goes, hey, this guy's a keto doc. You should talk to him. You're shooting all this insulin. I'm watching you shoot insulin at the bar. Let's talk. I'm in Mexico and we talked to this guy and he stopped his insulin during the vacation because he goes, oh, I just stopped having, margaritas all day and I changed this. And whatever, little tiny things that you could change and go, oh my gosh, I feel better. Okay, cool. Enjoy your vacation. You can still have fun and not, change up what you're doing a little bit sometimes.
It's really cool because even my wife, I keep telling her she should go, she's all in the naturopathic world of stuff and she's been busy with mommyhood so much, but she gets asked tons of questions from other mothers about diets, like what do we feed our kids? And my kids are pretty much eat keto. I mean, my oldest is pretty much a carnivore, but he eat a little sourdough bread, and we just keep them away. They haven't had processed food. We dabbled once with a slice of pizza at a kid's party, and it took 2 days for that kid to bounce back to normal. And we tell them, we don't mind going to a birthday party, and we bring our own, almond flour cupcake that's not as toxic as what they're serving. And the kids don't care. Who cares? The parents. They're all looking around like, aren't you embarrassed? Not them at that party, but other coworkers.
Yeah, no, that's an important point. Yeah, because because their kids are all hopped up on sugar and crazy, and then they see your kids decent and easy, and they're eating nutritious food that's good for their brains. So yeah, it's hard because they go, just let them be kids, let them have fun, let them eat donuts all day. It's like, well, dude, there's a cost to that down the road, and a lot of those same kids are on attention deficit medicines, and have stomach problems and headaches, and grumpy and we see it. I mean, to say diet doesn't have an effect is really short-sighted.
Yeah, and my kids are lucky. They saw my transition. They believe in it, and they've seen me help people and seen their transition. So Dad kind of knows what he's talking about, even though I'm still learning. This is something that's always evolving and changing. But for the most part, I know that processed carbs are terrible, sugar is terrible, and they've made it part of our society.
Yeah, and the other thing, part of it is, for another plug for homeschooling, look at what's happening. I'm telling you, I'm talking to parents and kids, and it's ridiculous. Like the teachers there, they're doing remote teaching. They're talking about stuff. The kid's distracted, looking at stuff on the computer, and you're not engaging face to face. A lot of times the kids they're not even on. They don't even show the kid. The teacher can't see the kids, and they could be sleeping and zoned out. But when you're doing mom and dad teaching you, there's some value to that. I go, remember, dad taught me how to do math. Dad taught me how to do this. Mom taught me this. And, you could go for a hike, and how much could they learn? Go, look at that cloud. Do you know what type of cloud that is? Do you know what kind of, how does the tree grow? How come these trees don't fall down? How come this tree looks like that? This one looks different in the middle of the pack. All those things you could teach your kids, and it's like spending quality time too at the same time.
Another thing I'm realizing, is going over. My youngest is now starting to learn what the 6-year-old's learning what the 10-year-old is, just through osmosis, and he's starting to really pick it up. He's going to be my little brainiac, right? And you see with a math problem, they came up with it their own way, the answer, right? And it's right. And then I remember, well, we were taught this way, but we don't stop them from doing it their way or a different way. Let them figure out, because there's more than one way to do a lot of things.
It's the process. It's the process. Like now in medical school, that's what us old docs are concerned about. They memorize everything, and they go, here's the guideline. You do what the guideline says. Like, well, why is the guideline like that? Like no one says, hey, all my patients are getting sicker. This doesn't seem to be working. It took me 15 years, 16 years to say, all my patients are getting sicker when I'm doing all the stuff they tell me to do. Maybe I should do something different. Then I do something different. I see, for me, Doug talked about at the conference, was like, I had 11 people come off insulin in 6 months. I've never seen that in my career. Once I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, like maybe there is something to this, right? And being able to motivate the patient, but also support them. It's a big picture, like, just like with kids, they need support, but that engagement, having you home, so many parents are out working, and it does have an impact. I don't care what you say. I know people who were raised both ways. I was a latchkey kid myself. And so I realized, like, I learned stuff from my friends, and I was going to ask you, because I know you have an interesting story with your brother also. Like, were you raised, like, was dad out of the picture when you were growing up, and did you have mentors to guide you other than mom?
My parents, were typical. My mom, the homicide, bad cop or badass cop from Miami. She was actually an art major and got a scholarship to Florida State out of high school. And my dad was a year older and was in the Air Force, and he went to visit her. And then 9 months later, here I come. So my mom dropped out of school to become a military wife, and that only lasted a couple of years. So my dad ended up in another state. So I would see him holidays, summertime. He did the best he could, but he was remarried a few times, let's say 5, and there was half siblings all spread amongst there, so he got tied up at times. So yeah, I was a lonely kid a lot of times on my own. Not lonely, but imagination was really crazy because I had to learn how to self-play a lot of times. But yeah, it was quite the upbringing. It was having your mom as a cop wasn't normal. I mean, I'd have my mentors and people that kept me out of trouble were my football coaches. And I'd have a police car bring me to practice if my mom was busy on a call. And the kids, all the other kids on the team was like, got a police car? Were you in trouble? I was like, nah, my mom's, called one of her buddies to take me to practice, and all through high school, a lot of my coaches knew my mom. So I had a secondary, people watch. And, you have requirements to play football. You got to keep good grades. You get in trouble, it's going to get back to your coach. So that was what kept me kind of, and my mom always stressed me. She could call any cop from the department to beat my butt if I stepped out of line. And I believed her.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny. My wife's a middle school principal, and one of the kids, his dad's a police officer. And so, he had to go home for something. And so the teachers were watching him walk out and get in the back of a police car. And they went to my wife like, what did he do? Oh my gosh, he got arrested. I was like, no, that's his dad picking him up and bringing him home. He had to take him somewhere, like he was sick and they had to take him home or something like that, But it's funny that you see a police car. Like a good friend of mine is a highway patrolman. He stopped over and he's parked. My neighbors are calling. Is everything okay over there? Yeah, just my friend stopped by to say hi. He's on his way home right now. So anyways, it's kind of funny how, you have these, to see a police car, it definitely, you see it go, what happened over there, right?
Well, usually if there's two, there's something going on for the most part. I mean, that's how I could tell. Yeah, so that's what we've been doing, just trying to figure out. We always figure we do this camping life for a few years. So after you're talking about homeschooling and camping life, or you want to talk about my brother?
Your mentors, right. Yeah. So tell me about 23andMe and how life changed for you.
So I'd done 23andMe probably about 5 years ago. I was just curious. I know my mom being Cuban that we have a lot of Spanish connection because her grandfather was, I guess, in the Spanish army and then ended up in Cuba, which they probably invaded, took over Cuba. I know that works. And I was able to see the Irish and the English and some of the Viking ancestry from my DNA. It was cool. You can almost, allegedly, I don't know how accurate all this is. I mean, but it looked pretty cool. It made a lot of sense for why I love meat so much. And, a lot of things I was going through. And maybe my wife's, her family comes from Uzbekistan and more of an Asian diet. So we are a little different, and it affects my kids at times. Sometimes we don't do a lot of rice and stuff like her culture did. Noodles, they do 1 pound of meat for a whole, container full of freaking rice. And everyone, I'm like, give me the freaking whole container of meat and give me a little rice if I was just going to be polite, And one day, this is when I was already down 50 pounds, feeling great. And I was sitting at breakfast doing my, eggs, bacon, and avocado. And I got an email. Relative wants to connect with you from 23andMe. And usually it's a distant cousin or something like, hey, my cousin so-and-so. And I will never forget this. This is, hello, my name is Dave Stahl. According to 23andMe, we're half brothers. Not only that, we're both cops and we both live in Florida. And I was just like, wait a minute, I'm being scammed. Who's playing, right? I'm like, how did they get 23andMe involved? I start like, there's no way. I mean, because on that profile, I made myself open to contact people and I had a police jacket on. So this way they knew I'm in law enforcement. So they're anti-law enforcement, don't even bother calling me, right? So him being a cop, he said he had to chew on it for a week before he called me. So we were able to pinpoint it. I called him, we talked, we verified we were both police officers, and he's 2 hours away, right? I'm like, how old are you? He's like, I'm 50. I was 49. I'm like, you're my older brother. Damn, I never had an older brother, right? I wish I did. Trust me, being all those times, when I needed to ask somebody about girls or driving or something, just life experience. And we finally met. One of the things that was funny is since he had me on age, I go, how tall are you? And he's like 5'10". I go, I'm 6 foot. Yes. Not like the younger brother. I'm doing better than my big brother. It's just so weird. I just went right into that role. And we were able to narrow it down to my father. Before he met my mom, he had a relationship with a girl briefly. And I guess she had gotten pregnant. And there's some back and forth about whether my father allegedly proposed to her. And back then, her family didn't want him to marry her because she was promised to somebody else. And he ended up she came back and allegedly said that she wasn't pregnant, and he left town. So my dad forgot about that incident, right? So she ended up putting Dave up.
While he was adopted, I was going to ask you that. Yeah.
She put him up for adoption, and Dave lived his life. He grew up in San Diego.
Wow.
Yeah. His dad was the officer in charge at the base out there where Top Gun was shot. He's got pictures with Tom Cruise and stuff, and like a youngster. I'm like, well, your life wasn't that bad. You grew up in San Diego.
Yeah.
You know, and he was an only child in that adopted family that he went to. And he his adopted parents died, and he was just curious. You know, he's like, let me try this 23andMe because they have more of the medical side. He could have done Ancestry, and I may not have found them because I didn't do that one at the time. So he did it, and he got the email, and then, you know, I had to finally call my dad, 71-year-old guy, and say, Dad, you got a brand new bouncing baby boy. He's 50, right? And he's like, what?
So he had no idea.
No, he had no idea. The way I did it was like, Dad, where were you in the fall of 1967? So imagine somebody asking you to go back freaking 50 years, right? And I had to help him. I had to lead him down this road. Well, Dad, you graduated high school. You joined the service, Air Force, in January. So you got 6 months. Where were you? He's like, Pensacola. Were you dating anyone? He's like, oh, yeah, I was kicking it with this girl in the lingerie department. I was in the paint department, like Woolworths or Zayre's or some old time store, right? And he's like, she said she was pregnant. And I said, well, I reckon we got to get married. That's just what they did back then.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, it wasn't an abortion. It wasn't. He just, all right, I got to marry you. And, you know, and she came back. This is what he was telling me. I'm not pregnant anymore. So my dad left town. So I got to tell him he's got a 50-year-old son. And they finally met. You know, I've got 3 other siblings from my dad's marriages. And we all had a big family reunion. And everything's just was great. And the best part is he's been camping and doing the RV for like 10 years. And I hadn't even done anything. I hadn't towed anything. You know.
Who's that, your dad or your brother?
My brother.
Oh, wow, man. Is that crazy? Isn't that crazy?
Dave's like, man, let's rent one. Let's camp together. I'll talk to you about it. And man, it was a wrap at that point. He's my guardian angel that showed up and said, you need to go this direction. And
man, Dave's
story is tremendous. It should be a Lifetime movie. He ended up finding his birth mom, 2 more sisters on her side. We were actually on NBC at the end of one of Lester Holt's broadcasts, and they talked about 2 cops finding each other, brothers. You know, 2019 they love cops, 2020 they hate us. So this was right before that happened, and the sisters were watching it, and we're like, wow, imagine that's their brother, because they knew mom had given up a baby. It had come out on their side of the family.
Yeah.
Imagine that's our brother, right? So Dave and I are comparing cousins, and I go, I don't have those 3 cousins. I go, that's probably your mom's side. So he reached out, and he found the sisters, and he finally just met his birth mom. Like,
wow,
about 2 months back, and she recently just died of cancer, man. So it was just like, you wonder if she died of a broken heart, you know, giving up your firstborn. I can't imagine what that did to her, you know. I think it really bothered that poor lady, you know. But at least he got to see her and kind of let her know he turned out. You could tell I get emotional about it. And
yeah, but to go through life and not know, did they not want me? What was the situation? When you know the situation, at least so many people are just tormented by that because they don't know what really happened, and you know, judgment, and you could hate that person and you realize they wanted a better life for you, or did they have a career? They were like, why did they do it? You know, all those questions are in people's minds for sure.
Yeah, you know, I think Dave was able to let her know it's all right. I turned out I had a good life, you know, rest in peace in a weird way, you know, this way you don't have that burden on your heart, you know, and that was cool. At least he, you know, he's met everybody, and now he's got like 12 nieces and nephews, you know, and we're like, woo, Christmas time, your bill just went up, right? And it's just been great. It's been great, you know, and now he's retired and full time. And, you know, we had a little bit of fame from there. We went all over, you know, we were on Fox and Friends in the morning. They interviewed us, and we did some other like podcasts and radio shows, and it was really cool. You know, we even had an audition for The Amazing Race.
Wow, man. That's so cool.
We sent in our they called us and like, would you guys want to do it? I didn't like running. I thought it was a running show. I never watched it, you know, and then I watched it. I was like, wow, this is pretty cool, you know? And I'm like, wow, how crazy would it be to do this with a guy I don't know that's my brother.
You get to know each other along the way and like go through challenges and all that stuff.
I'm going to want to choke him, or I'm going to want to choke him, you know?
Yeah, totally, right?
He's a sergeant, so I didn't know I was going to be taking orders from my big brother or, you know, a sergeant or something. So we did all that. We're going to fly out there in December, and then they delayed us till February, and then COVID hit. Grand opening, grand closing. We haven't heard back. So it is what it is. I wouldn't want to be traveling anyways when all that went down and be stuck somewhere. So it all
I know they just started a new season. We just watched the first episode the other day. With
I heard the Buffalo cops got knocked out. I'm like, man, we wouldn't have got knocked out, Dave. We would have had it.
Yeah, I saw that episode actually. Yeah, that's right. They did. Absolutely. But yeah, and that's something, you know, that makes you think, you know, for me, you know, I try to keep an open mind about a lot of stuff. And I know, you know, abortion's a very, you know, it's a tough topic. And you look at your brother and the life he's had and you guys getting to know each other. If his mom would have made a different decision, like you wouldn't have ever had that. You wouldn't have ever know that you have an older brother. But, you know, for me, one of the big things in life, you know, my friend Carlos, who I've had on the podcast, we do a lot of work over in Guatemala. And there's a lady there who has her legs are you know, basically she had amputated. She was born without, you know, from her hips down, basically no legs. And so her whole life, it's been a struggle. In that condition, she was raped, right? So she has a kid, and guess what? That kid was the best kid on earth, and he took care of her every second of her life. She recently died about 6 months ago, actually, and he was there and took care of her. It was like out of that, right? She could have said, look, this is, I don't want this kid. But out of that, she had the biggest blessing in her life. And she talked about it, that he was such a blessing to her, and that, you know, how much she loved her son and how caring he was. And he carried her, he put her in carts, he did all this stuff. It's like, wow, why is it she didn't have that kid? Like, where would her life have been without him? Like, he was it's an amazing story. And so anyways, you know, I'm so glad that you got to reconnect with your brother, and the fact that you both like camping and police and all that. You say, gosh, that's kind of a cool deal, right? Like, how you have that connection.
They asked Dave, like, how do two guys become cops? You know, because the only reason he ended up in Florida is his dad retired and he ended up in West Virginia his senior year in high school. And he was like, man, where's the waves, right? Where's the women? And, you know, he's used to San Diego and the California coast. And he goes, I think Florida is probably the closest thing than what California's weather's like. So he ended up in Orlando and, you know, applied down there and got the job. He was a cop a lot longer. You know, he did 30 years. You know, I did 20. And, man, it's cool. We passed each other a couple of stops along the way and camped a couple of days. Like, he went to San Diego this summer. He hasn't been back in a long time, and he was able to, you know, get a tour of the base and look at his old house that he grew up in. And I was
that's cool, man,
in New York with Flaggate, and then we finally come across the country, cross paths in Tennessee, and it's just, and now he's a couple hours away. You know, I'm always asking him, like, I mean, every story is brand new. First girlfriend, he got caught sneaking off the base. And I want to hear this.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. It's so awesome. Two brothers, like, you know, in police and medicine, you know, it's like they're your brothers. You hear these stories, go, oh man, remember, like, and that's a funny thing, because I know you played football too. It's like these stories of guys that would go, remember when we did that back in high school? That was so funny when you put all the beer cans in that guy's car, and the coaches are like, you know, he gets in trouble with the coaches, whatever. And, you know, so it's just funny how, you know, you have these bonds, and you can be 20 years later and you still remember and you still laugh and have a good time. It's like once you're connected, you're connected.
Yeah, it's just a drop in the bucket, because we have cop stories too, like the same stories I tell with fellow cops. Now I'm hearing from this man, and it was crazy. The first time we FaceTimed, right? I'm looking, I'm not even listening to what he says. I'm staring at his ears, his nose and stuff, and I see his hands. I'm like, he's got my finger. What the heck? You know, it was like a clone was dropped out, like an alien ship just dropped them in there.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. And do you see your dad's traits in him too? Like when you look at him,
more like my dad, yeah, than any one of us too. So
it's crazy, man. It is crazy how life is like that, like how you have similar paths in life, and you know, and you know, and because you think about it, because your dad wasn't a police officer, right?
Well, when he was in the Air Force, he did go to like an MP school for the Air Force. So he did, and his dad was an MP in the Army. So like Dave said, it's a warrior calling.
Yeah, but it's funny because your brother was raised in a completely different family, and becomes a police officer. Like you had the influence of your mom looking at her and going, hey, this is kind of cool what she does. I want to do something like this. And he didn't have that, right? When he was growing up.
He had an uncle or something that gave him like a U.S. mail hat when he was a kid and a badge or something or a patch. And he said he loved it at that point. He just thought that was the coolest thing. And he is a typical kid that always wanted to be a cop. That was him. My mom told me, you don't need to be a cop. Trust me, you need to go federal or you need to do something else with your career. And I still fell back into it, man, and Dave did too. It was just crazy.
Yeah, it's cool. So even though just like anything, you have these bad memories, you have good memories, you have the bonding when you go through all this stuff together. And so it's cool. I think that's part of it in life. When you go through hard times, you find out who your friends are.
Yeah. I mean, it's everything ever since I'm not gonna lie, since I changed my diet, it's like I discovered the secret. Like everyone knows about the book or the movie, or maybe they don't know. Positive thinking, really, really was powerful. And to find Dave and to just keep going and to discover this camping life. And now I'm like a mobile, sports nutrition guy and a trainer. I can help you. I can Zoom or we can meet. What campground are you going to be at next month? Oh, it's on our path, and I can teach them how to work out on camping life. How do you do it, when you don't have a gym nearby and stuff like that?
Yeah, super cool, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, this is like, I wish I did this when I can't ever say I don't wish I was a cop because I can never trade those experiences. I met my wife, had my kids, all through that. That job gave me a chance to retire now early, even though I'm not super rich. But, it's just been destiny, man. It's freaking awesome, man.
Yeah. So where's the path lead now, man? Where are you leading towards?
We're going St. Augustine for a month for February. We'll be on the, the Atlantic Ocean. Talk about earthing. Let's go lay down at the beach and do our morning stretches. I mean, dude, it's awesome. And we're going to go traveling life. I left a lot of money on the table to leave early. I could have stayed on longer and invested in my pension and walked away probably $500,000. But it wasn't worth it. I was already diagnosed with heart disease. They wanted to put stents in me. And I was like, and I left it. I left that money, and I got my kids in my life. I got my wife in my life. I got my life back. And, just traveling around has been awesome. But what we're going to do, and we're going to go to a grass-fed farm up in North Carolina, my buddy Brandon's farm. Not Let's Go Brandon. His name's really Brandon. And it's
why does that cross my mind every time I hear it? Darn it.
Poor guy. I go, well, at least you got a cool name. It's not like, whoa, sorry. That was just a guy doing a wheelie down the road. So,
camping stuff.
Yeah. So I forgot where I was at. I got distracted.
You're going to go to the grass-fed farm.
Oh, yeah. And it's raising roots. And
very cool, man.
We're going there. We're going to try to work there a couple of months, get us some grass-fed meat, help him out,
and come straight to San Diego. We'll hang out. We'll barbecue.
I got the Ithaca event. And then
when's that?
That's late June 24th, 25th. And then, yes, we could try to start working our way towards low carb San Diego.
All right, man. That would be awesome.
I got to talk to the wife about it, but she does want to go to California. I guess it depends on what's going on up there. I mean, we're in Florida and our governor rocks, let me tell you.
If you're coming to California, man, only place you can come is San Diego. There's nowhere else to go, I don't think. All the other people are getting upset, but they're like, yeah, he's kind of right. It's kind of right. But there's some great camping places down this way. I'm telling you, there's some cool places out in the country a little bit. Yeah.
Dr. Ben said, come through Arizona, come visit him. So maybe we can make a whole.
That's an easy one, man. I'll come back to Arizona. That's my second home.
Oh yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, it's kind of cool. Like that the path's open. You can go along these ways and help people. You can pick up Ben along the way, bring him to San Diego. He's out here for the summers. Usually he's out here. He gets to stay in fancy Coronado or, they don't even let me into Coronado. I have to sneak in because it's so nice there.
If I can get him to come to Ithaca, the Spruce Grove, and give some motivational speak to some of these, because, it's a different voice and he's been there and he knows his stuff. And some of these guys that might listen to him and, they're all, unfortunately, like I was saying earlier, they're medical.
You might as well even get that crazy Tro guy out that way.
Yeah. Is he over there?
He's in New York. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I'm sorry I didn't get to meet him at the Low Carb USA event, but I knew he had his own
Yeah.
issue going on. But
Yeah, it's a bummer, man. But we'll get him. But he'll be in San Diego, hopefully. And hopefully come to Salt Lake City too. There's a Salt Lake City. We'll talk about that. I'm gonna have those guys on to talk about their stuff. But yeah, I think there's a lot of cool stuff going on, and I think you have a lot of lives to touch along the way, and traveling. I mean, that's like a dream, really, retiring and traveling around. Maybe I'll talk my wife into it someday.
Hey, you know what?
Yeah.
We're open for sponsorships on our rig and our truck. Anybody that wants to help us out and spread the word, man, we're ready.
Yeah. Hey, how do people do that? By the way, I want to make sure we'll put links in there. Send me this stuff, and we'll make sure we have links for everything you're doing, because I think it's really, really important work.
Yeah, campandcampers.com. You can usually find all the information you'll need there. We'll be posting everything that's coming, and book early, because once it starts spreading, we may have to contact other campsites nearby and say, hey, can you at least help these people out so they can attend the events Friday and Saturday? So,
my cops and campers experience. My brother goes, hey, my buddies are all going to the desert. I'm like, where is it? He was like, way in the middle of stinking nowhere, in the middle of nowhere. I'm like, you got to be. I'm telling him, like, why is it way out here? Like, it's way out there. Like, you're off roading to get to this place. And he goes, you'll see. And so we get out there. These guys are coming in with helicopters. Like, two of the guys had helicopters, their own helicopters they flew in. These guys were blowing up stuff. They had, like, seriously, they were ex-Navy SEALs, police. It's like, I'm like, you got to be kidding. But I will say, these guys were so regimented. They were so safe with their firearms. They were, if they're going to blow up something, these guys did, like, tons of safety checks and these weren't just guys getting drunk and out there doing stupid stuff. These guys were very cognizant. They know ricochets. They know all this stuff. And it was for a rookie like me to watch these guys, like, wow, these guys are not just some guy, you know what I mean? Like, they're into gun safety. They teach you, here's how you do it. Here's how this is done. And it's methodical, and it's not just some, us hillbillies out there just start shooting stuff, right? They were very, you do not go in this area. Here's what, so it's cool to see that a controlled chaos,
right,
with people who know what they're doing, and still seeing stuff get blown up is a lot of fun for us guys.
I was worried about my oldest son. I think he wants to get into some type of demolition or something. So I'm like, oh boy, here we go. He wants to blow stuff up.
But it's great, and the other thing about camping that's fun, because us guys make our wives crazy, because she's like, I would be out in the Sierras, and she's like, did you guys have this and this? And I'm like, no, we'll figure something out. Like, you get out there, you're like, oh, who brought the can opener? Oh, shoot, man. Okay, who's got a knife and a rock? You know what I mean? They go, remember we had to do all this crazy stuff? So anyways, it's cool, man. Good stuff that you're doing out there. So I'm really eager to see the movie when you guys get your little documentary together and all that. Yeah, it's awesome, because it'll bring healing to a lot of people.
I'm hoping to get my brother out there as like a guest, like we can show a little news clip or something, and they'll be like, oh, I remember that story. And and then have him come out, and then he's Mr. like stoic, usually he's not Mr. chatty like I am, but he'll open up once people start talking to him. So I think it's cool, man. I don't know what we're going to do long term, except just keep telling stories and, trying to figure out, fill in some of the gaps of our lives. Like, sometimes I would just ask him, like, where were you? And like, when I first started in 2001, when I was in the academy, what were you doing? And he was like,
yeah, it's so cool to see that.
I was in a bison and I had long hair, and I'm like, really? And he'll show me pictures, and it's just crazy,
Yeah, and just to know you have a big brother out there, man. I got a big brother too. I was the baby, so I was smart enough to look and watch what they did wrong and go, okay, that's not a good idea. I know how dad reacted to that. I'm not going that road. I'm not going to be disrespectful. Like, no, I'm not doing.
My youngest son, he's learning like not what to do because of the older son.
It's a good spot to be in. Trust me, if you're the younger kid, you're like, just pay attention. Watch dad, watch how he reacts, and mom, how they react to stuff, and go, okay, I'm not doing that. I'm not pushing that button. That didn't work very well for a big brother. So yeah, we have fun stories like that too. So it's so great, man. It's so great having you. And I'd love to hear your family story and your story. And we'll have you back to talk about Ithaca and what you guys did and how it went and stories that you're going to hear. And so I think it's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. Thanks for having me on, man. You really let me, I feel 1,000 times better already just talking about everything that we talked about. It's just, I'm blessed and very touched that you asked me to come on. So thank you.
No, man, people are listening. They're like, have Brian shut up. Let Eric talk, man, because it's really something that's why I want to have a platform for good people like you who go around. Like, I think what's happening, what I see is people have lost hope. People are like on Twitter saying everyone's a jerk. I don't like anyone. Like, you know what? Go camping with Eric one day and you see how many great people are out there. When you start seeing the great people, like when you watch the news, they don't talk about the great people. They don't talk about the good stuff police do day in and day out, helping the old lady cross the street and getting the cat out of the tree and just talking to some kids and, hey, look, let this de-escalate the situation. Reaching out to the communities, trying to build bond. There's so many homeless task force who are out there helping homeless people. There's so much things, but you don't hear about those guys. I have friends who are doing all this stuff. That are great things, but you don't hear about it. You just hear about the one incident that it may be controversial. And the thing I would tell everyone listening is do not judge unless you're in that situation. One of my good friends from high school, one of the nicest guys on earth, defensive back, Abe Yap, went to pull over someone. He's a police officer. He's sitting in the car. The guy jumps out with an AK-47, shot his partner 4 times in the chest, shot him in the face, shattered his jaw. Luckily, the bullet hit his face and knocked his head out of the way because 2 more bullets went through the seat cushion behind his head that would have been in his brain. So, wow. These guys that live their lives like that, and they're out to help us. And it happened so fast, you couldn't even take a seat, but all he could do is accelerate. He put his foot on the accelerator to get out of the situation. There was nothing else he could do. His partner survived, died 4 times on the way to the hospital, survived. But you see that and you go, gosh, it happened so quick. And guys like you who've seen it and you've been there and you realize you don't know what everyone's thinking. It's a survival instinct goes in and you have to make a split second decision that could be the right one, could be the wrong one. But you have to look at the intention and the situation. I think we have to suspend judgment and hear the story sometimes, because it's everyone's quick to judge around. And I think saying, okay, what would I do in that situation? I'm telling you, it happens so quick. We've seen stuff like that happen so quick and you don't even know what happened.
Yeah, we always
like what happened to you.
We have like takedowns. We used to do this prostitution things and stuff. And we'll have the guy walk this way and we'll box him in. All right. Never happens like that. Guy goes the opposite way. One car, he gets in his car. Now it's just nothing ever goes as planned, and you just want to stay safe. And unfortunately, cops are getting shot and killed. I mean, I know people are getting shot and killed by cops, but there's a fear that's there with us, and imagine every time you saw a patient, you thought, am I going to die seeing this patient? Am I going to be in a fight for my life? And then Wasteland, that's why I mentioned, I don't know if cops should be working that long. They're always like, get promoted, get off the road. You're still a cop. That mental torture and, physical torture you're doing to your body is still hurting you, and I don't know, tell a guy leave after 10 years. I mean, that's not really going to happen, but I know.
Well, we can make the same argument in medicine, man. We can make the same argument, but I think in medicine is a little different. I think the older you get, the more you've seen, the more you say, okay, I'm not going to overreact to this situation. I've seen this before. This isn't life and death. I know what it is. And when someone's sick, when they're not. But I think that the problem isn't that. The problem is burnout. When you go, I'm not helping anyone. I'm not effective. I'm just rushing and I got to deal with insurance companies for 3 hours. Trust me, I was getting to that point, and I love the time in the room. I've never there's a couple of times I didn't enjoy it when people are jerks to me, and that's the other thing. And people are very disrespectful, and you're like, I'm trying to help you here, dude. I'm trying to help you. So don't be confrontational with me. I'm trying to help you. I'm on your side. I want you to live. I want you to be healthy, but I'm just explaining to you why this is. And so it's the same thing, in what you do. But I think over time, I see people get burned. I've seen people that you could tell they're just, as a matter of fact, one of my stories was when I was coming back from Boca Raton 2 years ago. I was looking at the flight attendant. One was really nice and peppy and happy, and the other one was like, go sit down, put on your mask, like no emotion. The other one's like, oh my gosh, you're going to be in Nashville. Okay, stop here and eat here. Oh my gosh, there's a great place over here. And she's, oh, your dress is cute. Like, nice. The other person just I'm like, I don't want to be like that person who's just going through the motions. I want to be the nice person who cares and connects with you, not the one who just says, go sit down. I'm going to go through this safety message real quick. You're not going to listen to me. Then when there's a disaster, you're going to come running and want me to help you, As a matter of fact, I'll tell you, and, Tro actually, on that flight home, I knew, I thought, Tro was supposed to have a conference before COVID intervened. And I said, I don't want to talk about the topic you gave me. I want to talk about physician burnout. And he texted me back. He was like, oh my gosh, Brian, no one's talking about that. Because I see it. I see what's happening to my coworkers and people that I deal with. But while I was talking to him on the phone, I left and I walked right by the pilot and didn't thank him for I expected him to land me safely. I didn't thank him for all the sacrifice. He's away from his family, all these things that they do too in their career to make me safe. And I've never left the airplane when the pilot's present and said, "Hey, thank you so much. Thank you for getting us here." Right. Thank you to the flight attendants for bringing us our sparkling water or whatever it is. And just being appreciative. I think those are things we miss out when you're burned out. You miss out on those things because you're so focused on what you're doing. You forget about, being nice to the waiter who's trying to do their best job they can. And, your food might be burned a little bit. It's not their problem. They didn't cook it. They're just the messenger. So I think a lot of that, and I think there's a lot of misplaced anger towards police officers that isn't deserved. And there are police. The way I'm saying is this: if you're a police officer and you're abusing people and you're abusing your power, then that's different. That's different. I mean, we should be held to a higher standard. So if we're corrupt and we're doing the wrong stuff, we should be held to a higher standard. And so should you as police officers.
And we are. And those that, either make bad decisions or betray the badge don't deserve to wear the badge. And they got to suffer the consequences. And we all know that. We know we're held to a higher standard. If I get pulled over for a DUI, I'm in the news. Somebody else may not, who has a different profession. It's not exciting. It's, there's no, you can't sell anything off, some poor guy's a landscaper that maybe got pulled over for DUI, oh, cop, ooh, how dare he? Meanwhile, that guy's like, maybe his wife left him. He just saw a couple of dead kids from a car accident, and over his whole career, he's just like trying to not that he should be driving. I'm not making any excuses, but it's just, and now his mugshots on the news,
Yeah, you can identify with what you've been through. You can identify like self-medicating and all those things and using poor judgment and being distracted and all those. Yeah. And I think that's a huge thing. As humans, we connect and say, hey, look, he's going through something, you're going through something. I mean, I've met people and I'm like, this guy's a total jerk. And then I hear what happened to him this week and I go, okay, you have grace. You have grace. You've been through it, As a matter of fact, one of my patients, he didn't show up to his appointment. It was just, he's always been a jerk. And so I call him, like, I'm going to fire the guy. And I pick up the phone, he's crying. And I say, what's up? He said, my dog just died and it just threw me off and I missed my appointment. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay. Your dog died. Okay. You get a get out of jail free card here. So yeah, but hey man, thanks so much. It was an honor having you on. I love what you're doing. Love your family. In just the few minutes we got to spend together, and thanks for all you're doing. Thank you for taking a stand and reaching out to people in need. And I know you're going to touch a lot of lives, and I'm excited to hear about it. And if we can meet you and Ben together, we'll have a blast. I can guarantee you that will be a lot of fun.
I'll get you to fly out there by June. So bring the wife, camp. We'll have an RV ready.
Oh yeah, I would love it, man. Very good.
All right, man. Thank you very much. And anybody really, I'm available. Reach out to me. If you're in a dark space, reach out to me. I can at least get you to some people. If I can't help you, somebody else I will know will be able to help you at least, or try.
Awesome. Any last word of wisdom on your way out, man? Anything that you learned in life that's really critical that you want to share with everyone while you got the platform?
Just, think about your life, how busy it is. And is that really living life? Are you living or are you slowly dying? And I realized that old career I had, which was honorable, and I love all my police officers and first responders, but there comes a point where you got to really look at yourself, even helping everyone else. You got to look at yourself, your own psyche, your physical health, mental health. Don't be scared to retire early, man. Money's just money, man. It's not true happiness. It may make you comfortable, but you can be comfortable in your nice fancy wheelchair. You get to freaking scoot around in because, your health went down. I mean, just look at it, weigh out the options, and don't be scared to change what's going on. That's not really the last word. It's a whole little sentence or two, but.
That's awesome, man. That's what I want to hear. I mean, I agree with you 100%. I changed my career path because it's always killing me. So I go, okay, this is killing me. I want to do something that have guys like you on and laugh and have fun and learn stuff, learn from each other and uphold each other and help each other and all that kind of stuff. So that's what life's about. So everyone, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, reach out and help people when you can. I'm telling you, it is definitely rewarding. And start your own podcast. You can meet cool people. That's what I get to do with Eric and some great people that we have on. So thank you for listening. I really appreciate the support. And, I'm doing this to bring these stories out because these are the stories that aren't being heard. You don't hear about the other side, and so I think it's really important to start identifying and giving people a little grace and understanding. And so be kind to yourself, be kind to others, have a great week. And thank you again for listening. thank you for listening to this episode. We greatly appreciate your support. We would greatly appreciate a positive thumbs up on all of the platforms like iTunes and Spotify or wherever you're listening. And we just thank you for our Patreon supporters. We greatly appreciate your help in getting this message out. We think there's a lot of important information, and hopefully this helps you. Have a great day, and thank you for listening, and thank you for your support.